Hey guys, welcome to a very special edition of Notsam Wrestling. I wanted to do something special here because I feel like this has been a very interesting year in the world of professional wrestling, and that's one of the things that I like to do, as I think a lot of people do, as we get to the end of the year, is kind of reflect, not because I'm the most reflective person in the world, but because I think that sometimes when we follow professional wrestling, we end up living in the moment so much that we don't really take in the story, the long kind of story of what this year was and how we got here. I think that this has been a really unique year in the world of professional wrestling, specifically in the world of WWE. So what I've decided to do, and I was thinking a lot about how do I want to kind of wrap up 2025 here on Notsam Wrestling, because I mean I'm the same way in terms of being in the moment. Whether it's an emergency podcast, whether it's a reaction, whether it's a podcast coming out, on a Monday, whether it's the radio show, it's always like, what's going on now? What's going on now? What's going on now? So I thought thinking about what went on would be the most Notsam Wrestling thing that we could possibly do, and how I want to do that is over the course of two shows. I want to look at the top 12 moments in the WWE. Now, what do I think of in terms of the top 12 moments? When I look at the top 12 moments, I want to look at the top 12 moments that when you put these 12 together, it tells the story of 2025 and what happened in WWE. Now, and again, it's like, well, why WWE? Well, that's because that's the story that I'd like to tell, and I don't want to, get too expansive. I think today, look, I want AEW had plenty of stories told over 2025. If I were going to talk about AEW, I'd probably talk about certainly Hangman and the rise of Hangman and his eventual win over Jon Moxley in the beginning of that kind of destruction of the Death Riders that went down at All In. You would have to bring up the Hollywood finale and the end of one of AEW's most epic rivalries between Tony Storm and Blake Monroe, who is now, or Mariah May, who is now Blake Monroe. The rise of Kyle Fletcher, I think, would be a big story for AEW in 2025. And of course, we ended with the return of MJF and him just roasting Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, and Swerve on his way to World's End. And on the next show, on show number 2, we'll talk about some of the stuff that we could talk about in terms of TNA and the stories that made them TNA in 2025. But today, I want to start to break down these 12 moments in the WWE. And for me, the way I'm going to do it is I'm not going to put them in order. I'm not going to rank them from 12 to 1 in order of importance, because I watch wrestling in terms of the storytelling and the story that's being told. I kind of ordered these moments in order of the story that they tell and how they tell that story of 2025. I think that when you look at WWE in 2025 overall, it's a really interesting thing. As I was going over a lot of these, it was a heel-heavy 2025. There was some good news, but it felt like there was more bad news than good news. And that might set up for, the good guys to have their comeback in 2026, or it might just be where they're at right now. I think it's very, very interesting when you look at the reception to a lot of the creative and a lot of the day-to-day. And the fact that in 2024, if you go online, it felt like the WWE could do no wrong. And in 2025, there was far more criticism about everything that the WWE did. So let's look at it. Let's look at what the WWE did in 2025. My moment number 12. We'll start with number 12. The first moment that we're going to talk about is, I think, the first big moment of the year. And the first big moment where you realize that we were going to see stuff that maybe we didn't expect, and we're going to all have to assess how we felt about it because it wasn't as clear as maybe we would hope that it would be. And that moment is Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble. Now, I start with this moment because it sets forth 2025, but it also comes off of 2024. 2024, up until the very end, was a big Jey Uso year, especially that second half. The Yeet movement really took off. Every show that you went to, the audience was full of those Yeet shirts. I mean, I remember seeing, I don't remember if it was Bad Blood or what PLE it was. I think it was Bad Blood, because I think I noticed on the Countdown show that the building was full of Yeet shirts, even though Jey Uso wasn't even on the show. And Jey Uso told this story of wanting to be that singles star and get that singles title and really stand out, right? The build of main event Jey Uso. Calling him main event Jey Uso is one thing, but Jey actually becoming main event Jey Uso was that thing that we hadn't seen. And on the way to 2025, he had lost to Gunther in an Intercontinental title match. He had lost to Gunther, I think, in a King of the Ring match. And it was like all these times that it really felt like, and I felt as a fan and, interacting with fans, that we were waiting for Jey to have this moment that he never got. And Gunther was like that perfect opponent for Jey to beat, and he never beat him. And so we get to the Royal Rumble in the beginning of 2025. Last weekend in January, first weekend in February, whenever it was. And, it was a pretty star-studded Royal Rumble. And I think a lot of people, first there were people who thought John Cena was going to win the Royal Rumble because it was John Cena's final Royal Rumble. And also because it was only his second appearance on his retirement tour, right? We saw him on Netflix Raw, where he kind of just said, hey, I'm back and I'm declaring myself for the Rumble. But he didn't actually get into much. He didn't really tell the story that he would later tell, and we'll get into quite a bit here over the course of the next couple of shows. But there were people that thought John Cena would win. And I think part of that was also because a lot of us still didn't quite understand what he was doing. There were still people that thought WrestleMania would be his last match. There were still, to me, I never thought John Cena, and I remember saying this on the podcast, I never thought John Cena was going to win the Royal Rumble because it would take him out of contention for the Elimination Chamber. And I said, I just don't see, if it's John Cena's last Elimination Chamber, that he's not going to be in the Elimination Chamber match. But if he wins the Royal Rumble, why would he be in the Elimination Chamber match? So I didn't think John Cena was going to win. And then it came down to, I think CM Punk, I think Roman Reigns, I think Seth Rollins. But I was kind of doing the math and shaping my thing, and while most people didn't expect it, at the very last minute, I said, you know what? I wouldn't be that surprised if Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. And people said, what are you talking about? Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble. And I was like, well, I can't imagine that they were setting all of this up for Jey to have this moment, only for Jey to not end up ever getting this moment. And the final two people in the Royal Rumble were Jey Uso and John Cena. And John Cena and Jey Uso are on the apron, and I believe John Cena had Jey Uso up in that AA position, that fireman's carry position. Jey Uso snuck off John's shoulders, back into the ring, and just with a simple push to the back, push John Cena off the apron, onto the floor. John Cena is shocked, and Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble. A lot of people were shocked. That was the first John Cena finish of the year that people were like, really? Just a shove? But I felt it was a very logical thing. It's what makes the Royal Rumble the Royal Rumble. It's what makes it so that everybody has an opportunity, and that many people that wouldn't be in the positions that they're in enter the positions that they're in, because there are so many different ways to win this thing. There are so many different ways to be in this position of, now I go and challenge for the championship at WrestleMania. This was the beginning of some Jey Uso backlash. People going, well, I don't, with all the stars in that, really? You give it to Jey Uso? This was the beginning of memes coming out where they said they were just going to have Jey Uso win these things. Now, at the same time, and this was the beginning, I think, of the separation between some fans on the internet and some fans in the arena. Because fans in the arena never cooled on Jey Uso. Fans buying merchandise, never cooled on Jey Uso. Fans yeeting, never cooled on Jey Uso. But online, criticism got heavy for Jey Uso. Jey goes forward. And by the way, and key to this, not part of the Jey Uso story, but part of the John Cena story, is after the Royal Rumble, John Cena got in the room for the press conference and said that he was going to declare for the Elimination Chamber, that he feels he needs to do what's best for business. He had come back on Netflix and said, well, I'm gonna, earn everything. But he said, what's best for business is that I'm in the Elimination Chamber, so I'm going to use my privilege, and I'm going to put myself in the Elimination Chamber. Everybody else won qualifiers. John Cena put himself in. And I don't think we saw John Cena on television again until the Elimination Chamber. But in the meantime, the question became, who's Jey Uso going to declare for? What title is he going after at WrestleMania? And it was pretty obvious who he was going to pick. I don't think a lot of people saw Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes, even though they have history, right? Even though you could have played on like the idea that they're friends. People kind of knew that the idea was Gunther. Gunther was the world heavyweight champion, and he was built as a guy who Jey Uso had not been able to beat in the past. He was the ultimate heel. He was the world heavyweight champion. Jey Uso was an underdog. Jey Uso was a babyface. Jey Uso had, the fans in the arena in his corner. Of course, this is the direction that we're going to go in. But as that sort of backlash continued with Jey Uso, it became part of the storyline. And in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, the story became, does Jey Uso believe in Jey Uso? Can Jey Uso, not only can Jey Uso beat Gunther, but can Jey Uso be the world heavyweight champion? Can main event Jey Uso go beyond that name and be main event Jey Uso? And it was really interesting because for Jey, many, and this was going back all the way to 2023, they were like, Jey's the guy. Jey should dethrone Roman. I think that it really does tell a story about timing, because not everybody will wait. Fans won't necessarily wait. If we have an idea of what we want to see, we won't wait a year to see it. I mean, we will. We'll still see it and everything. We'll still cheer for it. We'll still do all that. But in terms of like, we're asking for this. A lot of times you don't get credit for giving us what we asked for if you wait a year to give it to us, because now we've moved on to something else theoretically. And that story was kind of told without specifically saying, oh, we've waited a year for this and blah, blah, blah. It was told that in the context of Jey Uso, who we wanted at one point to beat Roman Reigns. A lot of people advocated for Jey Uso to be the one to beat Roman Reigns. A lot of people had said this bloodline story is really Jey Uso's story. This was a thing. And yet here we were, we had it, and it was like, yeah, but no. And you're going, that's interesting. And so now Jey Uso tells this story of like, if it's not about the bloodline, and if it's not about Roman Reigns, and if it's just about me being the guy on Monday Night Raw, me facing Gunther at WrestleMania, can I beat Gunther? Can I be the world heavyweight champion? Do I have it in me? And there was this whole story, and really, and this is one of the reasons why it's on the list, it's a story that permeated throughout the year. The psychology, the mentality of Jey Uso. You know what I mean? And the fact that he has feelings. He can be fragile. He can be frazzled. And we saw that going into WrestleMania. And it wasn't until pretty close to WrestleMania, like when there was only a week or two left leading up to the show of shows, that we got in there and Jey had found his confidence. Jey had found his edge. Jey was a little bit more aggressive, and Jey believed in himself. He would end up not only winning the world heavyweight title at WrestleMania, but he would do it with Gunther's own move. Jey Uso put Gunther in that sleeper hold, which would be a big hold for Gunther in 2025. And Jey Uso put Gunther to sleep and won the world heavyweight title, which I think is a forever moment. And I'm anxious to see how history looks at it. But Jey Uso got that forever moment. Jey Uso got that rise. Jey Uso wins the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. And Jey Uso ended up carrying that World Heavyweight title for about 3 months or so, which I think people felt like it was short, but I don't know. I didn't find it to be short. We'll talk about him losing the title, but for me, that moment is a definitive moment of 2025. Jey Uso, and not even the title win. I think the Rumble win is that definitive moment, that first definitive moment. Because it was the moment where it was like, okay, we are putting a new guy at the top of the card. We're putting a new babyface that hasn't really been at the top of the card. He's been, hovering around the top, but this is the guy. He's a new guy. He wasn't part of the conversation before. He was a part of conversations, but not this one. And as soon as he won the Royal Rumble, it was, okay, now the conversation is, how are we taking this as fans? And it led to everything. It led to Jey beating Gunther. It led to Gunther beating Jey. It led to Roman Reigns and Jey coming back together. It led to the friction between Jimmy and Jey. It led to Jey chasing the World Heavyweight title to try to get it back, feuding with LA Knight, feuding with CM Punk, and eventually coming back together with Jimmy Uso. And I feel like it's led to people wondering what's next for Jey Uso and if he's really going to stay in this tag team position. But that's my number 12, is Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble. I think number 11 is something that could also be number 1, which is John Cena turns heel. I would call this, because of what it was and then everything associated with it after, certainly the most controversial moment of 2025. And it's one that people did not see coming at Elimination Chamber in Toronto I want to say either the last weekend of February or first weekend of March, right around then in 2025. So like I said, after getting eliminated from the Rumble, John Cena declared himself for the Elimination Chamber. And everybody else, it was like we won qualifying matches. You had Damian Priest in there, you had Seth Rollins in there, you had CM Punk in there, And we also knew going in that Cody Rhodes was going to be the opponent. Jey Uso had already declared for Gunther at WrestleMania. So the winner of this chamber match is getting Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Now, interestingly enough, one of the reasons why people wondered if Jey would end up doing something weird was because on a lot of people's bingo cards, including, I believe, at one point or another, my own, we saw Gunther as a potential opponent for John Cena at WrestleMania. Obviously, we just had to be more patient to see that. But John Cena goes into this in a match that's going to be for the Cody Rhodes championship match at WrestleMania. And a lot of people expected John Cena to win. A lot of people kind of saw the writing on the wall and said, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena is the match that you want to have at WrestleMania. The top guy from then versus the top guy from now, it just makes sense. There was a world where somebody else would win because people saw it as a babyface versus babyface type of scenario. But I think most people assumed it would be John Cena. I just don't think they assumed that we would get to it the way we got to it. So leading up to the Elimination Chamber PLE, The Rock shows up again, and all these rumors pop up. The Rock's going to be on SmackDown. The Rock's going to be here. The Rock's going to be there. So The Rock shows up, and he lets Cody Rhodes know that because The Rock had first shown up at the first Raw on Netflix. And this is, again, where things get real complicated for the final boss. Because the final boss in 2024 was, I think, the best character all year. And honestly, the 2024 final boss is one of the best characters ever. That build up to WrestleMania was like nothing we've ever seen before. It was unbelievable. And we see him again on the Monday night after WrestleMania, where he talks about how this will never be over, and he teases this thing of his rivalry with Cody Rhodes and hands him back something that I think has never really been said, but it really seems like it was the Rolex that Cody gave him at WrestleMania, which was still confusing because also we saw Cody get Dusty's Rolex from, I think, Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, and Nick Khan. But that wasn't the Rolex. It was the WrestleMania 40 Rolex that we would later see pop up with Seth Rollins, that we would see. Apparently, he gave it to everybody involved, but we didn't know that, but whatever. It's complicated. So then Rock shows up again at Bad Blood in October of 2024, gives the 1, 2, 3 throat slit, and that's it. And we go, wait, what's going on there? And then the first time we see him in 2025, he's on Netflix Raw. And Rock shows up, and he's looking like the final boss. But he's more like there to kind of shout out Netflix, shout out the executives. Like, he's not really in character. He's always kind of in character, but he's also saying, Cody, you and I have become friends. And it's really confusing for people because, we're ready for this blood feud between Cody Rhodes and The Rock. Cody Rhodes, we still look at as the guy who spoiled all of The Rock's plans. But he says he's friends with Cody Rhodes. We go, but we don't know if he's lying. We don't know if he's being corporate or if the character is being corporate. There's a lot of confusion baked into this thing, right? And then he shows up on NXT the next night and kind of is a little bit more in character, a little bit more heelish, a little bit more letting the audience know, hey, whatever you thought of what I just did on Netflix last night, it doesn't matter what you think. The final boss does whatever the final boss wants to do. So about a month, 6 weeks, whatever it is after that, Rock returns to confront Cody Rhodes. And he says, Cody, The Rock doesn't want the final boss. He doesn't want what's on your shoulder. He doesn't want your belt. The Rock already has a belt, because The Rock's got his People's Championship belt that was presented to him when he put Muhammad Ali in the Hall of Fame or, whatever it was. And so he's got his People's Championship belt. He says The Rock already has one. It's the People's Championship. It's what The Rock wears here. And he goes, but The Rock does want something. The Rock, the final boss, The Rock wants your soul. And everybody goes, what? Now we're into some weird Hollywood stuff. He goes, The Rock wants your soul. And I'm going to need an answer on whether or not you're going to give The Rock your soul. And then we go, I don't know what's going on, but emergency podcast, like this is a wild, wild scenario. And then The Rock shows, he sends in a tape to the SmackDown Before Elimination Chamber in Toronto, and it is made clear that he's going to need an answer from Cody Rhodes on whether or not The Rock is going to get his soul at the Elimination Chamber PLE. And so it drives a lot of attention to the Elimination Chamber PLE. Now we have this hook. Now we have this story going in. And we get to the chamber. We haven't heard anything about this soul. We haven't seen the final boss there. Nothing. We get the Elimination Chamber match. John Cena wins the chamber match. And the chamber comes up, and Cody Rhodes comes out, and John Cena is happy. He's over the top happy. Hugging Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes says, okay, he's ready for it. We get this sort of a thing where you go, okay, Cody and John are both ready to have this epic match. And then here comes The Rock. The final boss shows up. Full final boss form. Full entrance. And Travis Scott is by his side. Travis Scott, who I believe we had last seen on Netflix Raw, accompanying Jey Uso to the ring, I want to say. I think that was Netflix Raw. But Travis Scott is now with The Rock. And he's saging everything, right? And The Rock gets in the ring, and John Cena kind of steps aside, but he stays in the ring, and Travis Scott is in the ring, Cody Rhodes is in the ring, and The Rock asks Cody Rhodes for an answer. The Rock says he's here to collect Cody's soul. He wants it all. He says, The Rock says he can give Cody everything. Everything that Cody's ever dreamed of is possible. All The Rock needs is Cody's soul. And Cody sits there and he says he's been thinking about this a lot. And he says, the problem is his soul, Cody says to The Rock, my soul no longer belongs to me. And everybody goes, no. And then Cody goes, because I gave it to these fans years ago. And then Rock tilts his head, and Cody says, hey, Rock, go. And then he does an expletive. He goes like this. He goes, hey, Rock, go yourself. And everybody goes, wah, wah, wah. And there's this amazing reaction, and can't believe it. The babyface has gone full-on babyface. And then John Cena's going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And John Cena gives Cody Rhodes a big hug. Cody Rhodes' back is to the final boss, which means as John Cena is hugging Cody Rhodes, John Cena is looking straight at the final boss. And the final boss looks at John Cena, and he nods to him. And he makes that throat slit gesture all the way across his throat. And John Cena's face, which is now a meme forever, which is now an iconic moment, goes from happy to completely stern and serious, looking like the Marine. And John Cena backs away, and he low blows Cody Rhodes. He kicks Cody Rhodes right in the nether regions. And for the first time since 2004, John Cena turns heel. And he beats down Cody Rhodes. And he puts that Rolex, and it's not the WrestleMania 40 Rolex, it's the Rolex that is Dusty's Rolex. And he wraps it around his fist, and he punches Cody Rhodes in the face with it. And Cody Rhodes is bleeding. And The Rock is putting the boots to Cody. And John Cena is putting the boots to Cody. And then Travis Scott shows up. And Travis Scott hits Cody Rhodes in the ear way too hard and bursts his eardrum. And John Cena and Travis Scott and The Rock leave together in one of the most jarring, startling, amazing moments ever to me in terms of just singular moments that live in a vacuum ever in pro wrestling. Just amazing. And then John Cena starts doing television, and John Cena gets on TV, and he talks about the toxic relationship. He uses all these therapy words that people love using these days. He talks about the toxic relationship that the fans have had with John Cena. And John Cena announces that his plan is to ruin wrestling. He's going to be the last real champion because he's going to win the WWE Championship. Like he's done many times before, 16 times before. And then he's going to leave with the WWE Championship. And he knows that once he leaves with the WWE Championship, that there will be other champions. But there will always be an asterisk. There will always be a gap that fans won't look. He knows how fans will react because he knows how fans reacted to him. That fans will not look at that champion the same way. And he will have ruined wrestling because of that. And he says, I'm doing this because of all of you, because of how you treated me, because of what you've done, because of that kid right there. And that poor little Augustus Gloop Belgium kid looks up. Like, who, me? And he's got his John Cena Belgium t-shirt on, and he's got his John Cena Belgium hat on. And John Cena's like, yep, that guy right there. Who, me? Me? Yeah, you, kid. And he goes on this tear. And people are into it, but also are looking for the what is it? Where is The Rock connected to it? Did you sell your soul? Did you do this? Did you do that? Like that connective tissue in how the final boss is connected to all of this, how Travis Scott is connected to all of this. That's not made. John Cena makes it clear that he did this because of how fans have treated him. But what he does not make clear is, you know, if you're just doing this on your own, what was The Rock doing there? Why are you doing this? What's the long-term plan? Why do we never see this coming? At one point, he's saying, I did this because, like, you fans are so toxic to me and that you fans have bullied me. But in another promo, very close to that, he's saying, I always have been in control of how you fans react. It's always been a social experiment. So how can it be that the fans are toxic if John Cena's doing a social experiment? There's a lot there that, like, instead of just making it really simple, which is, you know, in hindsight, it's very, very clear. Anybody can be a hindsight Monday morning quarterback. But in hindsight, it's like if it had just been, you know what? I tried so hard for you guys. And all you did was boo me, and I fought past it, and I fought past it, and I fought past it. Well, now I'm done with you guys. This has nothing to do with The Rock. I didn't sell my soul. You guys tried to take it from me. This is my soul. I'm not performing for you guys anymore. I'm performing for me, and I'm leaving because of me with the title. If it had just been something like that, real simple. But it got a little complicated. We get to WrestleMania, and we go, it's okay. We're going to get to WrestleMania, and we're going to get all the answers that we need. And we get to John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. And John Cena comes out, and he said, by the way, because we all speculate, he's going to change his gear, he's going to change his music, he's going to change this. John Cena says, I'm not changing anything. Because I don't want to give you guys the satisfaction, because that's what you guys want, and I am done giving you guys what you want forever. I'm not going to do it. So you're not getting it. And we go, wow, that's tough. That's rough. That's not cool at all, John Cena. We don't like what you're doing to us anymore, John Cena. He doesn't care. And so we get to WrestleMania, and not only is John Cena not doing his entrance stuff anymore, not only is John Cena not talking to Stu, not only is John Cena wearing the champion, or he hasn't won the championship, not only is John Cena not, like, he just puts the towel behind his head. Now, at WrestleMania, he doesn't even have the over-the-top entrance. Now, at WrestleMania, all he has is the full screen blacked out, just with the words John Cena on it, and walks to the ring without any of the hoopla besides his music. And John Cena says on the way there, he says straight up, calls his shot, and says, you won't do what you need to do to win this match, Cody. I know that you won't do what you need to do to win this match. In fact, I'm banking on the fact that you won't do what you need to do to win this match. And we get to the match. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. John Cena is wrestling the match in a way that is going to get boos. John Cena is not wrestling the match in an exciting way. John Cena, like, there isn't this roller coaster that you want to go on. But yet still, there are fans that are booing Cody Rhodes. There are fans that cheer John Cena and boo Cody Rhodes even still. Like, the sort of connection of what this story is hasn't fully been made effectively. And then Travis Scott's music kicks in. The referee takes a bump, the referee's down, and Travis Scott's music kicks in. And here comes Travis Scott down the aisle. And he gets in to interfere in the match, and he does, but then Cody Rhodes gets his receipt. Cody Rhodes drops him with the crossroads. And boy, does Travis Scott, by the way, walk down that ramp slowly. And as we're all waiting for The Rock to return, it doesn't happen. But while the referee is down, Cody has the belt in the ring. John Cena gives him the, not me, don't do it to me, don't do it to me. Cody Rhodes decides not to. John Cena gets the belt, hits Cody Rhodes with the belt. Referee's in, 1, 2, 3. John Cena wins the championship. Travis Scott gets laid out. Cody did the thing that John Cena said that he would do. And John Cena is now the world champion, the WWE champion. And I mean, it's like, huh. You know, because we didn't get The Rock. We didn't get the answers that we wanted. We didn't get John Cena wrestling a great match, which I think was intentional. And now we're just kind of left with a what's next. John Cena is still playing up the heel. He won't answer any questions in the press conference. And look, I think that this match in and of itself is what made it so people look back on the heel run as not good. Because they do. People were not satisfied with the John Cena heel run. And I think it's because of the WrestleMania match. I think that what came after this was really not bad. I think that the Backlash match with Randy Orton was really, really good. And John Cena showing up to Raw the next night. The next night, the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania is where John Cena first introduces the kind of countdown clock. First explains to people how many appearances he has left. First explains to people, I'm not even going to wrestle at all these appearances. You know, I'm just counting down the clock, and then I'm going to leave with the title. And then Randy Orton shows up. We get John Cena versus Randy Orton. The John Cena versus Punk rivalry that we got was really, really good. John Cena teaming with Logan Paul was really cool. Like there was good stuff in that heel run, but the WrestleMania execution and the questions not being answered following his massive angle at Elimination Chamber was what made it so we just look at it like, I'm glad they didn't stick with that all year. Now, all that said, they would not stick with it all year, but that's something we're going to get to as this countdown of the 12 best or the 12 biggest moments in WWE in 2025 continue. Let's get to moment number 10. Moment number 10 is another turn. Not John Cena turning on Cody Rhodes, but Paul Heyman turning on Roman Reigns. Now, this was a moment that was executed to perfection. This was a forever moment. In hindsight, maybe the moment that should have been on night 2 of WrestleMania instead of where it was on night 1. This is another one that starts at the end of 2024. I mean, really, the history in all of this goes even back further, but realistically, story beats begin at the end of 2024 when Roman Reigns is assembling a team for War Games. And they're short one guy. Roman has not made a lot of friends because of the way he's kind of been in WWE. And Paul Heyman calls in a favor. Paul Heyman calls in a favor for CM Punk to be Roman Reigns' teammate at War Games. And Roman Reigns is not cool with this, but accepting of it. Because ultimately, Paul Heyman owes CM Punk a favor that we don't know what it is. But there is already something about the relationship between Paul Heyman and CM Punk, the fact that they are described as best friends, that makes Roman Reigns uncomfortable. He doesn't like that the relationship even exists, let alone the fact that now it's getting looped in to Roman's business. So we get that this is all happening. We get that there's a hatred that Seth Rollins has for CM Punk. That actually goes back to the War Games before that, the War Games 2023 when CM Punk returned. But what we find out is that the favor does indeed get cashed in. So Roman Reigns, coming off of his loss to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40, he has to find himself. He starts 2025 getting his Ulafala back, making it clear that he still is the tribal chief in the WWE, that it is not Solo Sikoa, that he regains control over his family, so to speak. And then he goes, okay, now that that's done, I'm going to go to the Royal Rumble. I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. I'm going to get my title back. We're going to get this started again. Once the Royal Rumble happens, CM Punk is the one that eliminates Roman Reigns. And that starts a whole wave of trouble. Seth Rollins gets knocked over the top, then goes Roman, then goes Punk. And Roman is shouting at CM Punk, we just teamed at War Games. Why would you do that? What are you doing? Roman takes it very, very personally. Seth Rollins stomps Roman Reigns outside the ring. Roman Reigns disappears. He returns about a month later at Madison Square Garden in New York City. There's a cage match on Monday Night Raw between CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns interferes. We get to the point where the match is made official. It's going to be Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in a triple threat match at WrestleMania. Now, on the way there, we get to a contract signing. And we get to this contract signing. Now, Seth Rollins is furious because Seth Rollins doesn't even want to wrestle CM Punk at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins' grudge against CM Punk goes way beyond, I want to beat you at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins doesn't want to be in the ring at WrestleMania with CM Punk because he doesn't want to give CM Punk the rub. He doesn't want CM Punk to have the glory. He doesn't want CM Punk to have anything that CM Punk wants to have. And so we get to the Rumble, and we get to this contract signing, and Seth Rollins finds out that not only has Paul Heyman made this match official, but through his own inner workings, he has made it official in the contract that this match will main event WrestleMania. Night 1 of WrestleMania will be main evented by this triple threat match, that he has made CM Punk's dream come true. One of the reasons that CM Punk walked out on WWE, and this is the story that's told, is that he never got to main event WrestleMania. When he was world champion and he defended against Chris Jericho, it was not the main event. It was John Cena versus The Rock. He wanted a main event the next year when it was John Cena versus The Rock. He got the Undertaker match, but it wasn't the main event. And then we go to WrestleMania 30, and he's still not winning the Royal Rumble. At that point, it's going to be Randy Orton versus Batista, and he's going to get a match with Triple H at WrestleMania, but he walks out on the WWE instead. He's just over it. He finally gets to main event WrestleMania. And Seth Rollins, by the way, Seth Rollins is absolutely livid. Seth Rollins is livid because he is so against CM Punk main eventing WrestleMania that he would sacrifice his own main event for WrestleMania. For Seth, it's like, if I'd rather not main event WrestleMania than help Punk main event WrestleMania. That's how much he hates CM Punk. So he's furious. And Roman is like, okay, but like, you know, Paul Heyman is like hugging CM Punk, kissing him on the head. We did it. This is the thing you've always wanted. CM Punk is in tears. Roman is like, okay, like relax. And then CM Punk stands up and he goes, yeah, but that's not the favor though. And everybody goes, whoa. And we find out the favor is Paul Heyman is going to be in the corner of CM Punk at WrestleMania. And Roman Reigns tells Paul Heyman to tell CM Punk, no. Tell him you won't do this. And Paul Heyman can't. Paul Heyman won't. Paul Heyman says that because he gave CM Punk his word and said he owes him a favor, he has to be there for him. This is my best friend. So we get to WrestleMania, and Seth Rollins is out there, and Seth Rollins' motivation is to destroy CM Punk and to get through Roman Reigns and to make this about him. CM Punk's motivation is to have and win his first WrestleMania main event. And Roman Reigns' motivation is to get back on top. But now Roman Reigns, for the first time ever, has to do it alone. Because as much as we tell this amazing story in the video package that airs before the match begins, in CM Punk's entrance, the whole story of why it's so important that he main events WrestleMania is told. But then Roman Reigns comes out. And for Roman Reigns, everything is told through Roman Reigns. It's not about the video package. It's not even about the amazing screens behind him that are showing images of all the great Samoan wrestlers that came before him, all the members of the Maivia, Anoa'i, Samoan, Fatu, Samoan dynasty that is all connected, that Roman now represents. It's the fact that for the first time in 4 years, Roman Reigns is walking to the ring by himself. That for the first time since the tribal chief was a thing, since the first time since Roman Reigns said goodbye to the big dog, for the first time almost in that decade, right? For the first time since pre-pandemic. So it would, I think, be that decade. Roman Reigns is walking to the ring by himself. And he's not even wearing red. He's got the red ulafala on, but that's the only red he's got on. The trim on his wristband and his glove, the trim on his boots, it's all white. He is not representing the bloodline. He is not representing Paul Heyman. He is not representing anybody but himself now. And he takes that ulafala off and he realizes in that he has nobody to give it to. It's this wonderful moment where he realizes that he's always given it to Paul Heyman, and he didn't consider that moment until he actually gets to that moment, that he's got nobody to give his ulafala to. And so he just sets it down. And the match begins. And it's a triple threat match, so it's, of course, no disqualification, right? When we get to the climax of the match, Seth Rollins is down. Roman Reigns and CM Punk are looking at each other. Paul Heyman gets a chair in the ring, and Roman is looking at Heyman, and Punk is looking at Heyman, and Heyman decides to give the chair to Punk, and Roman can't believe it. And then Paul Heyman goes behind CM Punk and low blows CM Punk, and Roman is so happy. This isn't like a heel being happy that his manager is going to help him win. This is a man being happy that a member of his family has decided to show his loyalty. This is a man who has been obsessed with loyalty from the very beginning and realizes that he hasn't made a mistake by letting Paul Heyman into his family. And then Paul Heyman goes, Roman, look. And Seth Rollins is standing there. Seth Rollins, who a year ago acted as the shield to Cody Rhodes, the very distraction that caused Roman Reigns to lose that match, to lose everything in that match to Cody Rhodes. And Paul Heyman points to Seth Rollins, knowing that there is no way that Roman Reigns will pass up this opportunity, knowing that Roman Reigns has been waiting to get his revenge against Seth Rollins for over a year, knowing that it has all been about this. And Roman Reigns goes to attack Seth Rollins with that chair. And Paul Heyman low blows Roman Reigns, does the unthinkable, does the impossible, turns on Roman Reigns as well. Once again, Seth Rollins, the same way he was at WrestleMania 40, is a distraction to what the grander plan is. And Seth Rollins wins the match. Once again, Roman Reigns has not been able to pin Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins walks out the victor in that triple threat match at WrestleMania 41. And the night after WrestleMania, we see the grand plan. We see the vision as Paul Heyman is in the ring with Seth Rollins and explaining that Seth Rollins is the future, explaining that he was betrayed by CM Punk as a best friend who caused him to betray the tribal chief, CM Punk, by forcing Paul Heyman to choose between himself or Roman Reigns, did something that a true friend, well, would never do. And then at the same time, puts forward the using and abuse that Roman Reigns put him through. And I don't know if he did it that first night, but brings forward this idea that this was coming ever since Paul Heyman was put through the table at Madison Square Garden back in 2024 when the new bloodline put Paul Heyman through that table, and Paul Heyman looked down the lens of the camera asking the tribal chief why he has forsaken him. And that this was what it was ultimately leading to. And when Roman Reigns comes out to attack Seth Rollins, it's Braun Breaker that is there to spear Roman Reigns. And the first Raw after WrestleMania ends with Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins, and Braun Breaker victoriously standing above Roman Reigns. It was the moment that changed everything. It was the moment that reshaped Roman Reigns. It was the moment that created the vision, something that would be an incredibly important part of 2025. And it was the moment that nobody saw coming, just in and of itself. Even if we hadn't had the debut of the Vision, even if we hadn't had any of it, if we had just looked at Paul Heyman turning on Roman Reigns, that moment, I mean, it was incredible. And it was laid out to perfection. And by the way, it was only 6 weeks after another incredible turn had happened. The fact that, Paul Heyman turning on Roman Reigns happened 6 weeks after Cena's heel turn and still got the reaction that it did shows you what a big deal all of it was. It also kind of defines a lot of what happened in 2025, because after John Cena turns heel and after Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns, you don't have that many sacred cows left. You don't have that many moments. You've upped the ante to a point where you've got to create this new foundation that you can then once again shock people with. But right now, it's these things that you've spent years building that you have hit right between the eyes. And now it becomes a matter of paying those things off, realizing that you don't have those moments to remake anymore. However, that's why both of those moments end up on my top 12 moments list for 2025. We actually have another turn for moment number 9. Moment number 9, as I look at my top 12 moments that told the story of WWE in 2025, honestly, it's Becky Lynch turning heel. And I don't think that we knew at the time when Becky Lynch turned heel. Becky Lynch turning heel was not story of the year when it first happened. But I don't think, and I guess you should never really doubt Becky Lynch and her ability to kind of take control of the narrative and take control of everybody's attention. But I don't know if everybody realized when Becky Lynch first turned how important this would be to television, kind of going forward, and what a key character Becky Lynch would be throughout the remainder of the year. Because Becky Lynch was gone from WWE television for something like 11 months. It was almost a full year that Becky Lynch was not a part of the WWE. At WrestleMania 40, Becky Lynch had lost to Rhea Ripley. And, I think was there for a little bit after that, but then very quickly was gone, was off television. And nobody really knew if or when she'd be coming back. She did some stuff in Hollywood. She was gone. And then came WrestleMania this year. We find out that the match booked for WrestleMania is Bayley and Lyra Valkyria versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Tag Team Championship. And Bayley, we find out on the Countdown show, ends up getting jumped backstage on the day of and is not going to be a part of this match. Now, this was very controversial, even, out of storyline, because Bayley ended up talking pretty publicly about how it was very tough to find out that she wasn't going to be a part of WrestleMania this year, that she had really counted on it, and to lose that it's a big loss, obviously. But it was to create a moment, which was Lyra Valkyria coming out and saying she had a tag team partner. And it's Becky Lynch. Whoa! Just rings through that stadium in Las Vegas, and everybody loses their minds. The man has come back around. Big Time Bex is back. But she really comes back as the man. She's back as a babyface. She's back as the Becky Lynch that was the Becky Lynch that ascended to the top of the WWE roster like nobody's ever done. Going back 5 years, 6 years to that first Becky Lynch run where people were comparing it to Austin because it was so organic and got so big and ended up in the first female main event of WrestleMania in history. And it was when WrestleMania was only one night, when there was only one main event of WrestleMania. Becky got it alongside Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. So Becky Lynch is now back in the WWE, and it's now Becky and Lyra versus Liv and Raquel, and Becky and Lyra win. Becky and Lyra become the women's tag team champions. But Becky Lynch's return was not, for me, the number 9 moment. That was not the big moment when I think about moments. The big moment came when Becky and Lyra had a rematch, defending now their newly won women's tag team championship against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, because Liv and Raquel were able to win the tag team championship back one night later. On the Raw after WrestleMania, Liv and Raquel won the tag team championship back. And you almost sat there at very first, you almost sat there going, well, what was the point of this then? Was the point of Becky and Lyra winning the championship just like to have that moment? And then you're going to completely move on? Because if so, I don't. And then you realized what the point of all of it was. Becky Lynch turns on Lyra Valkyria. Becky Lynch takes out Lyra, blames her for losing the tag team championship, calls her ungrateful. Becky came back saying, I'm going to help the young talent. I'm going to help the young talent. But what Becky did was, and this is the original version of this character, she read what critics of her say on the internet, which you're really never supposed to do. But when Becky did it, it became something that was very helpful to her. When Becky did it, it was something that was, it became very fruitful, right? Because people were calling her Becky Hogan, saying she only looks out for herself. Oh, big surprise, Becky Lynch is in the main event again. And Becky, almost like Eminem and 8 Mile, said, well, if that's what you think of me, that's exactly who I'll be. And this new version of Becky Lynch becomes a Becky Hogan, where it's all about herself and it's all about whatever puts her in the position that she needs to be in. And that's how the character is portrayed on television. And that's how the character portrays herself on television. And it's pretty brilliant. People get interested. She ends up turning on Lyra Valkyria. The next night, or the next week, I believe, she ends up admitting that she's the one who took out Bayley. She says, yeah, I'm the one that jumped Bayley. I'm the one that jumped Bayley because Bayley wasn't ready for this spot, right? And so it's almost like, well, I attacked Lyra because Lyra cost us the tag team championship, because Lyra's not ready to be a tag team champion. I took out Bayley because Bayley's not ready for this, And Becky Lynch ends up, within a month or two, winning the Women's Intercontinental Championship from Lyra Valkyria. She spends time putting that Women's Intercontinental Championship in the forefront of Monday Night Raw and WWE television. She ends up having that great triple threat with Lyra and Bayley. Ends up in a rivalry with Maxine. Ends up holding the title, dropping the title. Ends up in the match with AJ Lee. We'll talk about all of it. But ends up kind of evolving the character to the point where she's tweeting in all caps and really, really has become somebody who you have to pay attention to. Becky Lynch is at the forefront of both, even when she's not on television, she's at the forefront of the conversation in the world of what is going on in the WWE and the storytelling of what is happening in the WWE. And I think that's because of who this character is and what this character is. And that's why I find myself, whether I want to or not, making her heel turn the number 9 moment of 2025. I mean, I kind of have to. When I go to number 8, the number 8 moment of 2025, this is one that I'm not sure contextually we knew what it would mean as we ended the year, but even when it first happened, we knew it was a big deal. The number 8 moment of 2025 is Gunther retiring Bill Goldberg. So this starts in 2024 when Gunther had insulted Goldberg to his face. This goes back to that Bad Blood pay-per-view that we had talked about earlier when The Rock returned and everything. Goldberg, who Atlanta is where he spends his time, Atlanta, his hometown, is in the audience. And Gunther had previously said to Bret Hart's face that his favorite wrestler is Bill Goldberg. But then he makes it clear once he's in Bill Goldberg's face that is not true at all. He doesn't like Bill Goldberg at all. And so you're going like, this guy's just a menace, right? And I mean, he's talking about how bad Goldberg is at wrestling. He says, to gauge Goldberg, I hope Bill Goldberg is a better father than he is a wrestler. I mean, it's savage stuff. And that kind of sat, that was something that happened in Atlanta, and it sat there. It said, okay, this has happened now. And this idea of, two monsters facing, we of course get the vision of Gunther versus Goldberg, but we don't know if or when that will ever happen. So Gunther ends up getting the World Heavyweight title back from Jey Uso. This was in, I want to say June, May or June. About 3 months, or maybe 2.5, after Jey had won the title. He ends up losing it back to Gunther. And this was really like the beginning of Gunther breaking people's hearts. This was the beginning of the reality of who and what Gunther is. It was an episode of Monday Night Raw, and it had been promoted, right? That Jey Uso versus Gunther is going to be for the World Heavyweight title on this episode of Raw. And nobody thought Gunther was going to win the title. Nobody thought that. And there were other stories going on, but Gunther was always just over here going like, yeah, I know you're messing with this guy and that guy and Bloodline and Roman and this and that. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for my match, and I'm going to beat you for the title. Gunther, coming off of WrestleMania, had a match with Pat McAfee to kind of, I think the point of that was to create spectacle and to, kind of get a W back in Gunther's column. Some people were critical of that match because Pat McAfee is a commentator, but this is not like Gunther facing Michael Cole. Like, that is such a dumb thing to say. Like, Pat has wrestled at WrestleMania. Pat has wrestled in a War Games match. Pat is a professional athlete. Like Pat has never been portrayed as a broadcaster, right? He's been portrayed as an athlete who broadcasts. It would be like saying, I mean, Lawrence Taylor wrestled, William the Refrigerator Perry wrestled, like the football players wrestle. Wrestlers were football. Goldberg was a football player. I mean, he wasn't a kicker, but he was a football player. I'm sorry. So, but yeah, so that had been like kind of in the rebuilding phase. And this was all part of the rebuilding phase of Gunther. And so he's got this match lined up. And then all of a sudden, we get to this match. It's the main event. And there's no interference. There's no chicanery. There's not even any hoopla. Gunther just beats Jey Uso 1, 2, 3. He just beats him. And it was really the beginning of this thing that we would see later in the year pop up again, going, how could that be it? And people don't learn from history, but they go, how can that be it? I mean, you just did all this for Jey. I'm finally buying into Jey. How can that be it? And it's because that's what Gunther does. We gave Jey his moment at WrestleMania, but now we're building Gunther into what Gunther is going to be. How can that be it? Well, because that's it. And then Gunther the next week on Raw, where now people are booing him. They're like, you just gave it to Gunther. And for the whole time Jey was champion, it felt like people were going, I don't know about Jey being champion. And then once Jey lost the title, it was like, how can you just take the title off Jey? We were just starting to think, like, this title reign, why wouldn't you give him a long title reign? It was really an interesting thing to see. So Gunther re-won that championship, and he shows up on Raw for a victory celebration. And what happens? Goldberg comes out. And people start immediately wondering if the whole reason that Gunther beat Jey Uso was just because you wanted to have Gunther as world heavyweight champion when you finally do the match with Goldberg. Now, I don't think that that's the case based on how the year went, but I can understand why people would be questioning that. But so Goldberg comes out. He interrupts Gunther's world title victory celebration. And he says, no. I'm here to celebrate you. I'm here to congratulate you. But then he gets right in Gunther's face. And he reminds Gunther of what Gunther had said to him at Bad Blood. He reminds Gunther of what Gunther had done. And then he looks at Gunther and he says, Gunther, there's a Saturday night's main event coming up in Atlanta, Georgia. And in Atlanta, at Saturday night's main event, and while he's sitting there, he's spitting as he's talking, and you can see Gunther like blinking, trying to get through all the spit, but Goldberg is he's running at 11. He's full intensity Goldberg. He's full, there's no Bill there, just Goldberg. And he says, because Gunther, at Saturday night's main event in Atlanta, you're mine, and you're next. And everybody goes, whoa, boom, 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 boom. And I mean, Gunther hates it. Gunther can't stand it. He can't believe Goldberg has done this to him. And he runs down Goldberg, and he shows up the next week on Raw, and he runs down Goldberg about how bad Goldberg is, how bad he's always been. And then he admits, look, I know you had a run in 99, but this isn't 1999 anymore. This is 2025. And he gets across the same thing that was put across when he fought Jey Uso, which is, I'm Gunther. This is a different thing now, dude. This is a different thing. I'm Gunther, and there's no getting around what I am capable of. And there's no getting around how disappointing this is going to be. Like, I'm not that guy. You don't want to do this. And he, kind of degrades him as a pro wrestler and gets back to, and that's one of the reasons why Gunther was such a great opponent for Goldberg, is because Goldberg was never he was never known for being a professional wrestler. He was a spectacle. He was and I say this in a positive way, he was an attraction. He was the sizzle, never the steak. And that's okay. It's professional wrestling. There's room for that. But Gunther is all steak. If anything, people still to this day criticize Gunther because they want more sizzle, and Gunther won't give it to him. But that's Gunther. That's his character. That's the gimmick. It's not supposed to be anything but that. And so, we get to this spot where Gunther's running him down. Then the next week on Raw, Goldberg comes out and he punches Gunther in the face. Gunther swings, Goldberg blocks, Goldberg punches Gunther in the face, Gunther gets laid out, Goldberg chases him out of the ring, Gunther goes, maybe I've underestimated this guy. I can't believe how good this guy is. This is not good at all. This is bad. And the match ends up being advertised. We're going to get it at Saturday night's main event in Atlanta. It's Goldberg's last match, but it is also a world heavyweight title match. And we never really get, well, what happens if Goldberg wins? It's just like Goldberg even sits down for an interview with Michael Cole. And they go, well, this is your last match. And Goldberg goes, yeah. And they go, but this is a world heavyweight title match. And Goldberg goes, yeah. And they go, well, what'll happen if you win the world heavyweight title? And Goldberg goes, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Because it's an interesting spot to do it, because Goldberg can't say, like, you can't say if Goldberg wins, he's going to retire as champion, because that's July. We are right in the middle of the John Cena story. John Cena's entire story is that I'm a heel. What makes me a heel is that I am going to retire as WWE champion. And so if you then have Goldberg coming around and saying, I am a babyface, and if I win, I get to retire as champion, then, it's just, you can't tell those two stories at the same time. That just logically, it just doesn't add up, like, at all. So you just kind of end up in this position where it's like, yeah, we'll see who knows? It's like, well, this is a world title match, right? Yes. And it's Goldberg's last match, right? Yeah. And Goldberg's even selling shirts that say Goldberg's last ride, right? Yes. And didn't The Undertaker have the same shirt? Yeah, but let's not talk about that. Okay, fine. But what if Goldberg wins the title? I know, right? No, I'm asking you. Right. What if? And that's all we kind of have. So we get to the match. And I think that the match was better than it had any business being. And I think that the match was the best match that Goldberg has had in years. I think that Goldberg, for, many reasons, had, dealt with a lot of disappointing performances. And I say that not to say the audience was even disappointed. I think Goldberg has talked about it. I think he was disappointed in some of the performances that he had previously. And so the fact that you got this match, and it also is like, people weren't bringing this up in the build to Cena. They weren't, like people don't bring up how good Gunther is. And the fact that that's like a big reason why this is Goldberg's best match in like the last decade was because Gunther's amazing, dude. And Gunther was selling. Goldberg was no selling Gunther chops, which is probably not great. But Gunther was still able to go with that and tell that. Okay, if that's the story we're telling, that's the story we're going to tell. Right? It wasn't a classic. It wasn't like on my list of, if I were going to make the list of the best matches, just straight up matches of the year. No, of course this match wouldn't be on it. But it was, if I was going to make a list of the best Goldberg matches, especially the best Goldberg matches in the last 20 years, it might be the best Goldberg match in the last 20 years. Since 2005, it might be the best Goldberg match, yeah, in the last 20 years. Because, even going back to, 2005, going back to, WrestleMania 20, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar was not a great match. Definitely in the last 15, I would say, this might be the best. So you got this great match, but I think because of how Goldberg historically has been portrayed, especially how Goldberg has been portrayed in the last few years, you end up feeling like there is a world in which Goldberg wins. Like, maybe you don't put your money on Goldberg winning, but you certainly don't go, it's a foregone conclusion that Goldberg is going to lose. Because Goldberg has won matches that he should have lost before. Like, he might win this. Wouldn't that be wild if? What will they do if? Could you see it? Yeah, I could see it. Especially because, like I said earlier, if people are going in thinking, okay, Goldberg, they haven't said, the fact that they haven't said what they're going to do if Goldberg wins, you could take this two ways. Number one, they don't have to think about it because he's not going to win. Or number two, because that is a story beat that's coming later. And which one is it? I guess we don't know, right? So hopefully we can find out. So ultimately, it does get to where it goes that even though there was this idea that there is a world in which Goldberg wins, he did not win To really no one's surprise, Gunther not only got the victory and not only retained his title, but this, and I think, was a bit of a surprise. He didn't even have to sneak it by him. He didn't have to do it with the power bomb. He put that sleeper hold on Goldberg. And how about the fact that in 2025, that Gunther sleeper hold, whether it's put on Gunther or it's Gunther putting it on somebody, this is only, moment number 8 out of 12. And this is already the second instance of a sleeper hold being a big part of the moment that we're talking about. That's a wild thing to think about in 2025. But Goldberg did get put to sleep. Gunther put him in the sleeper hold, put him to sleep, and Goldberg's career is put out to pasture as Gunther waves goodbye, as he would do later in the year. Gunther wins the match, accepts his boos, and says goodbye. Now, Goldberg was able to get up and wave to the crowd. This was before the ESPN deal. This was before Peacock, the deal with Peacock changed, right? So, at this point, later in the year, the last Saturday Night's Main Event, I think the last 2 Saturday Night's Main Events maybe, they were only on Peacock. This one was also on NBC, and the fact that it was on broadcast television meant that it was hard-timed. The Saturday Night's Main Events that aired on full NBC broadcast television, not just Peacock, were, it's a big deal that they were on broadcast TV, but also kind of criticized because it meant that you had to have a lot of commercial breaks. Because that's part of it. You had to have a hard time show and have a lot of commercial breaks. And so what ends up happening is the show goes off the air exactly when it's supposed to go off the air. And it goes off the air as Goldberg is starting his farewell speech. Now, I don't think many people at first saw it as a huge deal because they still ended up putting the whole speech out on YouTube. And I could even look it up now for the purpose of this conversation. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up doing more views on YouTube than it ever would have done on television. I guess the prestige of being on television, but really in 2025, it's got, I don't know, this video I'm looking at has 1.4, the YouTube has 1.4 million views. So I'm sure if you combine that with all the other socials and the shorts and the reels, you have a pretty good indication of how many people are watching this thing. But we end up in a very unexpected way getting one of the biggest kind of internet news story talking point moments of 2025 going after this because Goldberg can't help himself. Goldberg does an interview a couple of weeks or a week or whatever it was after Saturday Night's Main Event and talks about how he felt like he was treated unfairly in his retirement match. Talks about how he felt like, they cut off his speech. He was bothered by it. And kind of we're all sitting there going man, Goldberg had a great match with Gunther, ended up getting to do it in front of his hometown, ended up getting cheered, ended up being entertaining. There was really nothing negative to say about Goldberg's last match. He lost, but there was nothing wrong with him losing. Why? What would be the purpose of him winning his last match? It literally would have done nothing for anybody. So we kind of leave going, man, of all people, and Goldberg has been a very controversial person in wrestling, for a long time. Goldberg is a guy that felt like at a point WWE was not treating him well. Remember when he came over from WCW? Goldberg values himself highly. And, I don't think there's a lot in Goldberg that feels fortunate or grateful. I think there's a lot in Goldberg that number one, doesn't love wrestling. And I don't think he's ever made that a secret. But also wants to be acknowledged for his contributions as opposed to being man, wrestling provided me a really amazing life. Not only did I make a lot of money in the world of professional wrestling, but it made me famous enough that I've been able to take the name Goldberg and do a million things, to do this car show, do this, end up in movies, But that's not really Goldberg's style because he goes and does an interview after Saturday Night's Main Event and talks about how, He did not like it. He did not like the retirement match. He thought he was treated unfairly. He thought there were other people that wouldn't have been treated like that. He thought WWE didn't give him, didn't treat him the way they should have treated him. And you're just like you couldn't believe it. I remember by then we had Pro Wrestling Nation. So not only was I doing the podcast, I was doing the daily radio show. And I mean, it just gave all of us so much content to talk about. Because, I mean, all of us wrestling fans were befuddled by the whole thing. Like, of all responses to have to this retirement match, the idea that you would look at it as a negative was, I think, the one thing that none of us saw coming in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I guess it kind of added to the legend of Gunther. The fact that, like, Gunther's the one guy who, even in a Goldberg scenario, is able to get real heat off of pro wrestling. Like real heat. Like, if you love Goldberg, you really hate Gunther. Even if you're a grown-ass man, you really hate Gunther if you love Goldberg. And we would see that later on, and we'll clearly, don't worry about that. That moment will make it onto our top moments here of 2025. But yeah, it really is kind of an amazing thing. So yeah, Gunther ended up moving on from there. And I think, too, that the Gunther as world champion story would obviously feed in more to SummerSlam than it would to that Goldberg match. And that's probably more why that switch was made. Now, maybe the switch was made earlier so that Gunther could get the Goldberg match and SummerSlam as champion and not just SummerSlam. Because Jay retiring Goldberg would not have worked at all. But although Goldberg might have liked it better because they, I don't know, I guess they would have been friends. I have no idea. I don't know how that man thinks. But yeah, I think that it had more to do with SummerSlam than the Goldberg thing, but probably both, honestly. Probably both. But still, an amazing turn of events. Now let's get to number 7. Let's get to the number 7 moment of 2025. And for me, the moment itself is the return. And it's the return of R-Truth. R-Truth returning to the WWE. Now, one of the things that made this moment nuts was that nobody knew he was going away to begin with. I mean, R-Truth returning is the moment that encapsulates this whole story. But this whole story is a fascinating thing, and it's especially fascinating because when you think about it, like, you didn't, like, we kind of are ending the year with R-Truth in a similar position to what he's in right now. Or like we're ending the year with R-Truth in a similar position to where he was when we began the year. So it's almost like this whole middle part was like this weird fever dream that you can't believe actually happened. But it did. It happened. So, like, we go, right? And I mean, he just had an insane, like, the fact that he ended 2025 the same place he began does not properly showcase how absolutely nuts 2025 was for R-Truth. So R-Truth is somebody that's mentioned in the Cena retirement tour because for a long time, R-Truth, when he started just doing it in interviews randomly one day, and it became a thing, and it ended up on television, where he said that John Cena is his childhood hero. And that's been a thing with Truth. He goes, John Cena is my childhood hero. And he ended up at that Raw after WrestleMania last year in that tag team match with John Cena with The Miz, and it was all fun and everything. But obviously we're thinking, how's that going to come into play in 2025? So at Backlash 2025, and then he started calling himself Ron Cena at some point. He actually said that was not his childhood hero, that John Cena was his older brother. Brother from different mothers, but the same father, which is so funny. Because nobody's ever described their stepbrother as their brother from a different mother. That's usually how you describe somebody that's not actually your brother. However, regardless, at Backlash, John Cena faces Randy Orton. And John Cena beats Randy Orton, but there was an interesting thing that happened. To me, at the end of that match, John Cena almost had this look on his face where he wasn't sure if he was doing the right thing. He was like looking at the audience and how they were reacting to him. The fact that this was like that final Randy Orton-John Cena match. Like, That's a really special thing. A lot of people feel like Randy Orton is the ultimate rival to John Cena. But he kind of had this look like maybe he wasn't quite so sold on this bad guy thing, you know? And so, you know, he does his thing and he goes to the press conference. And R-Truth confronts him at the press conference. And R-Truth says, "What are you doing? This isn't you. This isn't you. We want the old John Cena back." You know what? And then he ends up giving R-Truth the AA at the press conference through the table. So now you have John Cena taking out R-Truth, which is not only a big deal because R-Truth has been associated with John Cena for so long, and R-Truth is the ultimate babyface, but it's because R-Truth is beloved. So any thought of John Cena having doubts about being a heel goes out the window because he just did this to somebody who is absolutely beloved. And it leads us to getting the match. R-Truth versus John Cena is a match that we actually get. We get it at a Saturday night's main event in, I want to say it was probably May. I think it was May because it was after Backlash. So it was May. I think we had the Saturday night's main event with Cena and Truth. And then after that was Gunther and Goldberg. And then there was one, and then there were two at the end of the year. I think that was it. So we get Truth versus Cena. We actually get the match. And I mean, it's great to see. And R-Truth comes out as Ron Cena, and he's got his own, you know, John Cena parody shirt on with his face on it and everything. So R-Truth gets a match with John Cena, gets the press conference thing, gets merch based on John Cena. Like the biggest story of the year, John Cena's retirement, and R-Truth gets to be this associated with it is amazing, but we're only beginning. Because he gets this match with John Cena, and he ends up losing to John Cena, and I don't think anybody's terribly surprised, but we get the match. And then not long after the match, like days after the match, this tweet goes out from R-Truth. And the tweet says he just found out that WWE is going to be releasing him, which isn't quite the correct language for it. That WWE called him up and said they weren't renewing his contract is what it was. And WWE had been doing this to people. And I think where back in the day, you might have seen like for talent, one day comes and they go, okay, we're going to release all this talent and move on. It felt more and more like instead of getting releases like that, they were just going to people and they were allowing contracts to run out, which is a better way to do it because at least you get everything guaranteed to you in the contract. When they were releasing people, it was just like, okay, as of, that's why you get these 90-day non-competes because now we'll pay you for the next 90 days and then you're done. But when you're just ending a contract, the contract's just over. So you don't have to wait 90 days before you work again, but also you get every bit of money that you're guaranteed in your deal, not just 90 days after you get released, which is a good thing. But the bad thing was nobody wanted R-Truth to not work for WWE. R-Truth is a guy who wrestling fans have been riding with since 1999 in the WWE. Had obviously taken a break to go to TNA and become Ron the Truth Killings, two-time NWA champion, showcasing what he could do. And then he's back in WWE and he had a run as a heel, he had a run as a face, but he was now this like just the most entertaining character. And every act that he was associated with, he elevated. He wasn't this comedy character that was obnoxious that people were tired of. He made the 24/7 title something that was actually worth watching. He made the Judgment Day even bigger than it was. And now he had jumped in with this John Cena tour. And at a time when people didn't know if they were fully buying the John Cena heel run, they could definitely cheer for R-Truth and boo John Cena. And here we are finding out that of all people, R-Truth is getting let go from the WWE. Fans were outraged by it and wouldn't stop tweeting about it, wouldn't stop talking about it, didn't understand it at all. Far more so than maybe the most that I've seen since like the Yes movement with Daniel Bryan, where fans letting their voices be heard. But also, and this is key, I think you were hearing a lot from wrestlers. R-Truth is beloved in the locker room. Wrestlers wanted R-Truth to be there with them on the show. In the locker room, to like everybody loved R-Truth. And so you're seeing all this stuff and all the sheets and everything. We're trying to find out what was really going on. And every indication was, no, this is real. This was a decision that was made, and it's a real thing. Truth got released. Or Truth's contract is not being renewed. And you were like, wow. Like, what sense on earth does that even make? But okay, if this is the way it's going to be, this is the way it's going to be. And you're seeing signs for our truth. You're seeing chants for our truth. And a week later, only a week, I think it was a week, it's Money in the Bank. And the main event is Logan Paul and John Cena versus Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. And the ref goes down, and a masked man jumps out of the crowd, a masked man that, is becoming very regular in the WWE. A masked man jumps out of the crowd, and there he is for everybody to see. He rips the mask off, and it's R-Truth. R-Truth has interfered, costing Logan Paul and John Cena the match. A babyface R-Truth. The arena goes crazy. People cannot believe it. Because the idea, it is very difficult for a company to tell you they're releasing you, only to call you back immediately and say, we made a mistake. That puts them in a not great light. It makes it seem like they didn't know what they were doing to begin with. It's a rare thing to have happen. And it puts an amazing amount of leverage in the corner of the talent that's getting that call. And I think one day we'll get all the information, hopefully right here in the basement. We'll get all the information about how that all went down. But regardless, R-Truth was back, and he had made a big difference in the match. He hadn't come back and done something comedically. He had made a physical difference in the match and made it so that the babyfaces could win. And the next night on Raw, Truth comes out, and he jumps through the crowd. Again, the same way he did at Money in the Bank, as if he wasn't booked. Jumps through the crowd, jumps in the ring, interferes. On Raw, jumps through the crowd, gets up on the commentary table, says, I'm Ron Killings. I'm driving now. And then takes out a pair of scissors, and everybody's like, oh my God, what's this guy's plan? And cuts his hair, cuts his dreadlocks out of his hair. And everybody's like, he cut his own hair? What? This was like a staple of R-Truth forever. But he cut his hair, and then he skedaddled. And we started, whether it was Raw, whether it was on SmackDown, you'd see Ron Killings cutting promos saying, I'm driving now. He was angrier. He was more unhinged. He ended up in another match with John Cena that ended up in a disqualification that would lead to John Cena. But he got 2 matches with John Cena on this retirement tour. And people were trying to figure out like exactly what direction is Truth going in here. And he would do like interviews where he would snap, he would go in and out of character, and it almost became this schizophrenic thing where it wasn't like he was saying goodbye to the R-Truth character. And I'm glad he didn't say goodbye to the R-Truth character, because like realistically, R-Truth is the one we wanted back to begin with. So it's almost like we should have R-Truth here. But he goes, I'm driving now, I'm Ron Killings, and he's interfering in matches, and he has this match with John Cena. And then not too long after that, because now it's July, right? And we get to this place where we get the old John Cena back. And you kind of see simultaneously, almost like their souls were connected. Almost like they're brothers from different mothers, but the same father. John Cena becomes a babyface again. And we'll talk about that later on. Trust me, we got plenty more moments to go. This is only number 7. Just as that happens, you end up with Truth also kind of going back to just being Truth, where like Ron Killings' goal was to cause chaos until John Cena became a babyface again. And then once John Cena was the old John Cena again, all that sort of like anger and unhingedness that Ron Killings had, that side of Ron kind of went away. And now we're back to having R-Truth. And he's got short hair now, but it's almost like nothing changed. Which in reality, like I know that there are some people that are like, whoa, he did this, and I'm supposed to be the main event guy, he's gonna be the world champion, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, the guy that we never wanted to leave was R-Truth. And now you can't just bring R-Truth back, because if he got released and he comes back and he's still happy-go-lucky, silly R-Truth, then that makes no sense at all. Because it's like, why would you be happy? You just got almost fired. So we go through this, and how do we get R-Truth back to R-Truth? Well, what if we got him back to being R-Truth by, putting him in this position where he's attached to John Cena? And if John Cena can get back to being John Cena, why can't R-Truth get back to being R-Truth? And so now we've got babyface R-Truth, and we end the year with him talking about Nick Aldis's balls, and everybody loves it, and everybody's having a good time. I've had a good time, man. This is what we're doing. This is how we're breaking down this year. I mean, it's amazing to me how many things happened all year, especially in WWE, with all these story notes. We're going to break this up into 2 shows so I don't keep you here all day. But we are going to get through. Those were my first 6, starting from 12 and counting down. Again, not in terms of impact, but just in terms of how the story is told. I think this is the order that you got to tell them in. Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble. John Cena turns heel. Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns. Becky Lynch turns heel. Gunther retires Bill Goldberg. And R-Truth returns to the WWE. Tomorrow, we will drop show number 2, where I count down the final 6 moments for me that told the story of WWE in 2025. Make sure that you're listening on Sirius. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Notsam Wrestling audio podcast. You can get it wherever you get podcasts, on the Sirius XM app, wherever you want to get it. Just look up Notsam Wrestling. And of course, make sure that you're all subscribed to youtube.com/Notsam Wrestling, hitting like, leaving comments. Let me know what you think of those first 6 moments, and what you expect to see on the bottom 6. And what I may be missing out of telling some of these stories. Can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait to see what happens in 2026. It's going to be thrilling. I'll see you soon for the other 6 moments.